All right, on this episode of Bowks Talking Bouts, very excited to be talking to a very key individual in the Professional Grappling Federation fold as the launch for Season 8 is about to kick off and promising their biggest evolution yet. Quite the impressive league, and very much excited to talk to Zoltan Bathory, BJJ black belt, and prominent member of Five Finger Death Punch. But first off, just curious how you're doing today, Zoltan.
Awesome. Can't complain. Didn't train today yet, but right after this, going to train. So,
You always seem to
good
find a
day.
way to, yeah, I was going to say, you always seem to find a way to get the training and you make it work wherever you're at.
It's one of those things that some days, I get out of bed, I'm like, ah, man, not today. But once you go, then you realize like what a waste it would have been if I didn't. you know,
Yeah, yeah.
it's one of those things.
No, for sure. And it's just super interesting to see everything that's happening with PGF and everything like that. And I was seeing an interview where you were talking about how there are, I guess, certain different rules here at play that maybe certain jujitsu purists wouldn't necessarily predict to see in jujitsu competition, but maybe something that will inspire, new people to, check it out. So can you kind of explain that piece to people who might want to, be checking out this show?
Yes, basically, I look at it like jiu-jitsu is definitely the fastest growing martial art, but it's also one of the fastest growing sports. I mean, we have all the celebrities now training, so this is becoming a really prominent, prominent sport, prominent martial art. But for jiu-jitsu, competitive jiu-jitsu to become a spectator sport, right? Certain things had to change, and that's where kind of the PGF came in. When I found these guys in Alabama, they were running in PGF first 5 seasons in Alabama. When I got involved, basically that's what I saw. Like these guys figured out the holy grail of rule sets. Rules dictate behavior, obviously, and the rule set of jiu-jitsu created a scenario where if you're an outsider, you're looking at a jiu-jitsu match. If you don't know what's going on, it's quite boring because for us who are practitioners, I see everything that's happening. I see every setup before it even happens, right? But for regular spectators, if you watch boxing or any of those kind of sports, obviously you know who won. If somebody is getting knocked out or somebody getting beat up, it's easy to understand. But if you look at jiu-jitsu, because of the point system, it becomes very difficult to follow unless you are yourself practitioner. And with the PGF, basically, we changed that. That is what, as I said, when I got involved, I got involved at season 5. I was a coach on that season, and that's when I approached these guys like, hey, I've both the financial means, the business means, the understanding. I have the means to move this from Alabama to Las Vegas and help you guys build this into a global event, not just a local event, right? And basically that's what happened. The rule set is really simple. This submission only, right? And on the end of the match, there is a draw because it's a team-based sport. So this is the only competition that allows to have a draw. So there's a 0 point. You scored nothing for your team. This changes completely. This fundamentally changes everything. And if you won with some kind of a submission. It's either a choke or a joint lock. Choke gets 6 points, joint lock gets 3 points. That adds to your team's tally. And that's it. It's easy to understand what's going on. Either nobody won, 0 point, or you won with one or the other submission type of submission, and that awards you various points. The reason we give more to the choke, because we want to encourage real jiu-jitsu. To me, again, some people can argue, I don't care, argue. But to me, jiu-jitsu is about dominance. I don't want to see guys, as heel hooks and leg locks are efficient, I don't want to see two guys sitting and tickling each other's, feet. To me, that's not jiu-jitsu, right? It's about positional dominance. And we kind of encourage that. And when it comes to penalties, if you're not active, you have a shot clock, meaning a clock starts, you get a penalty flag, and you have just 20 seconds to do something serious, or we stop the match and you're going to start from a really unfortunate position where you're most likely going to lose the match from, right? The referee's position, and you don't want to be there, right? So this basically pushed PGF to become the fastest, most dynamic jiu-jitsu competition in the world. You can't hang out, you can't hang around, you can't be lazy, you can't be inactive, right? And then as an entertainment segment, we added, because, I came from the entertainment world. I mean, that's where I operate mainly. It's important how it has to be entertaining, or it's not going to be a global phenomenon, right? And so one of the things we do is, instead of giving you penalties, and again, get into some penalty point system, which makes it complicated. So doing that, we are rewarding if you do something extraordinary. We're going to throw a little money back, which is kind of visual. It's funny. It happens right on the moment you did something, and it encourages people to do extraordinary things. Like, we started to realize that once we introduced the money bags, there are a lot of judo throws and big takedowns that are happening, and that's visual, right? Because the guys want to score that extra bonus. So it's also accomplishing another goal that we always wanted to do, which is turn it into a professional sport when athletes get rewarded, financially rewarded, and can build a career. To become proficient in jiu-jitsu, it's a lot of time, and so you dedicate your life, and there has to be a way to have a career. If you have to put in so much time and to not to have a career, that's kind of crazy. So we are luckily changing that.
Yeah, and I love these kind of efforts. I've always been into like submission grappling and stuff like that. I guess to your point about creating those, more exciting moments and there being more of that defined kind of point structure. I always felt like one of the big hurdles that other leagues previously, like say like Metamoris, for instance, like a lot of the matches would kind of end up in these like stalled out draw kind of things that just didn't really, like, I don't know, land conclusively for anybody. And you're someone who obviously has a lot of cachet in the music scene, as we'd kind of spoken about too, but a lot of podium placement in jiu-jitsu competitions too. So you can really offer those direct insight pieces into, what could create a more palatable, entertaining sort of product and whatnot.
Right. I mean, like, look, somebody purist would say that, hey, if it's stuck in a position, right, a position that is kind of looks like stalling, we're holding each other and nobody can get at, or if somebody moves, we'll lose the match because it's one of those positions. So people could argue that, but then the counter argument, like, well, look, I can't punch you in the mouth. If I could, you would move. Trust me, you would move, right? So technically, the situation already fictitious. So then there is no reason to be a purist in jiu-jitsu. Then you have to look at it like, okay, it is grappling. Like, we can hit each other, but how do we make grappling exciting, fast, and visual, right? And that's the way you penalize those positions. You don't let them hang out there and just having somebody's on a side control and you can hold that for 3 minutes. Well, that's not interesting to anyone, right? We're not going to let you hang out there. And sometimes we penalize, well, not sometimes we penalize all the time defensive positions as well, right? So when you're in defensive position, we understand it's a defensive position, but the idea is that you cannot sit there. You have to figure out a way how to counterattack, right? Or if you are in a dominant position, but you're just holding somebody, same thing. You're not advancing toward a submission. We are submission based. We need you to get there, right? And so even though you can hold somebody there for 3 minutes, is not interesting. So we're going to penalize it as well, right? And it's like just like any sports. It's a sport. We're not on the streets. While jiu-jitsu is very effective, but this is a sports setting, so there are rules. Like in football, if I could have a baseball bat, then I win all the time. Well, you can't. There has to be rules, right? So it is what it is. So these are the rules, and I believe that we did it right. This is the holy grail of rule sets, in my opinion. It is really, really pushing the pace that we are faster, more dynamic than any other competition.
I guess even within that too, though, I mean, I'd be curious to get your thoughts on like UFC BJJ and kind of them trying to like really lead into that space. I mean, obviously such, great, leadership in the MMA space with like the UFC and the ubiquity of that brand, but also the recent efforts with Zuffa boxing and what they've been doing. Like, what are your thoughts on the UFC BJJ efforts?
Well, first and foremost, we are very close friends, actually. So this is the scenario where we as a competition and as competition promoters, the owners of PGF, we are in a unique position because we are a team-based jiu-jitsu championship, right? Which is, you have 5 members on your team and all your team members fighting all the other team members. So this is team-based, not individual-based. And so we are fundamentally different. We're not getting each other either. We're not competition to each other. It's completely different format, right? So they are, most jiu-jitsu competitions are individual, combat sport. Individuals are fighting for their individual win or lose, right? Or loss. And so we're not in each other's way. In fact, we are we are really good at finding talent. So a lot of our guys end up in the UFC BJJ. In fact, we even have an agreement that every champion from the PGF gets a spot on UFC BJJ if they want it, right? And so we're very close in that way. And they do what UFC does. So their structure is same as UFC, that they have 3 rounds, and that's how they operate, because that's what is familiar to their fan base. So, and then you have all the other, ADCC to CGI to all these other competitions that, various rule sets, but they're all individual based. There are only a handful of team based ones, right? And in that way, like if you look at PGF, because it's team based, it fundamentally changes how it operates, right? And this was also because what was important for us, again, the rule set is important because we wanted to have a really fast, entertaining program that helps jiu-jitsu to spread, and we want your grandmother know what is a triangle choke, right? If you get there, we are mainstream, right? So that's one thing. Second thing, we wanted the athletes to become professional athletes, so get them paid. To get them paid, we have to. Well, first I was the investor, so I put up the money for that, but I knew what I was doing in the sense that we had a plan where eventually it switches into a sustainable structure, and we got there. So it became a franchise style competition where we have 4 teams right now, but it's expanding to 8 and then beyond. But every single team is owned by an individual, right, or a team. So now these are completely own franchise teams that are fighting each other. So, and we have a lot of interest because it's kind of like getting into the NFL and NHL on the ground level when it started. Imagine at the time you could grab a team that you could own today, right? And so basically that's what we're doing. So these teams are owned, and the regional, so for example, Alabama Twisters, they already have a massive fan base because all the people from Alabama rooting for this team now, right? And then we have the Las Vegas Kings, Colorado have one, the Wolverines, and basically the Philly Phenoms, they do amazing, right? And I see how these franchises are growing massively. And as I said, they completely own. And not to get into the business side of it to bore people, but there's a reason why the billionaire class owns sports teams. The tax rules completely change. It's a very different environment when it comes to that. And it's an asset. You're not sponsoring a team, you own the team. So it's a sellable asset that changes everything. And we knew that we were going to get there eventually, and we have, right? So that means now we have the rule set that is, to me, should be the standard, the most entertaining, fastest, most dynamic, and it's sustainable. That means this gonna just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we managed to achieve those goals. Athletes getting paid, and the world learns jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, I guess this is just speaking to how my brain works, because you talk about how like the individual jujitsu presentation competitively is more of the norm, and like a team-based thing isn't necessarily the standard per se. Like I feel like I recall like the quintet Sakuraba stuff and just your history training
Uh-huh.
with Royler Gracie. Like there's a part of me that's like, it'd be cool because like Sakuraba's son is fighting in Ryzen right now. It's like it'd be cool if we got like Zoltan versus Sakuraba's son in the promotion. Like, are we gonna see Zoltan out there in any super fights and stuff like that? I feel like that could be entertaining.
Well, look, I compete. I compete in judo and I
Mm,
compete in jiu-jitsu Tuesday. So,
yeah, yeah.
in fact, 2 days from now, I'm going to what is it? Orange County, IBJJF. So I'm competing there. So I still compete. So these are the things that can actually happen because I love competing. To me, the competition is not even about the accolades of do I win or do I lose. It's that I like the competition. I like the vibe. I like the people. I like that moment when you step on the mat, right? Like everything gets quiet. I like that mind state that you completely in this flow meditative state. The world doesn't exist. I just like that feeling. And I also like to train myself, which again, I compete since I was 9 years old. But that mindset where I can walk on stage for the 100,000 people and I will not have a single actual, you know, heartbeat elevation of any kind. I don't get adrenaline rush, any of that stuff, right? That comes also from martial arts. When you can walk out there and you stay calm, completely even and calm. And I like keep repeating that. You know, it's an internal training, so to speak. So I love doing that. Um, as for so yeah, could it be a super fight? Absolutely. Let's go. And as for another thing that what you mentioned about individual versus team. See, when you come to a super fight, what happens? You going to win or lose that fight in a really short period of time, and then it's over. With a PGF, you get to fight 15 times in a season, right? So what happens? People start to know you. So you're not just a guy came out, fought, gone. Like people got to know you because they're watching you throughout the season for 5, 6 weeks. Every Wednesday they have a competition, and you're gonna have 3, 4 fights that day. And so people start to understand your styles. So you start to see what you're about to do. They can start to see your habits. You know what I mean? So you get to showcase your jiu-jitsu in this case. You get to show your skills over and over and over, and you got to build a fan base for yourself because it's repetitive. In any other way, super fights, like maybe you fight 3, 4, 5 times a year as a super fight situation, right?
Mhm.
Versus here, when as I said, you got to know the athletes. The athlete got to build a fan base, and again, 15 fights versus one. If you lost one, who cares? There's another in an hour, and another an hour later. See what I mean? So that changes also the mentality. You're gonna probably throw more of your skills into the on the mat as well, because when it's a super fight, high level jiu-jitsu, man, that's why it's boring sometimes, because the guy who makes the first mistake will lose, right? Because everybody is so good. Now, here in a PGF, when you have so many matches, if you lost one, so well, you have more, right? So you're going to be more, how would I say, less careful. You're going to try to do more crazier stuff because the stakes are not as high as I just lost this one and it's over.
And it's a great mentality, which I think is demonstrably successful with certain leagues. Like, I mean, Ryzen, for instance, BKFC. Like, you hear from some of those promotional figureheads, like, we don't necessarily care about like what your ledger looks like per se, but put on exciting fights and you'll always have a spot here. And yeah, for sure. I mean, I think that really is a great attitude and ethos to have and great to apply to your effort.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, of course. You still want to represent your team because we do have, the way that this works, we have a draft, right? And so what happens, the draft have 20, 25 athletes in there. And as a team owner, on the beginning of the season, you have a certain amount of cash that is capped. So all the teams are on equal footing. And then you have to bid for the athletes to get it on your team, to get this particular athlete on your team. And other team captains, team owners are outbidding each other. That's already like mental jiu-jitsu. Because you kind of have to, if you get the best guy that you think the best guy is in this whole roster, right? But you paid too much money for it, then the other four guys that you're gonna pick, you're not gonna have the money to pick the second and third best guy. So you might have the best guy, but your team gonna lose in the end because the other four is maybe not as strong. See what I mean? So you have to kind of understand how to assemble a winning team. That's what I meant. It's like oriental jiu-jitsu, right? And so if you are maybe an exciting fighter, but you're not really putting points on the board, then these team owners actually not gonna pick you. See what I mean? So there has to be a balance that yes, you have to do interesting things and you have to be exciting, but in the same time you do have to win, right? So this is why this is pushing both elements. You can't just be like, I'm crazy, but I always lose. Well, you're not gonna be picked for the team.
Mm-hmm.
You also have to, what I mean? So that's what I meant. I think this is the holy grail of the setups of all the possible jiu-jitsu competitions, because at least from entertainment perspective, definitely.
Yeah, it seems like there's a lot of like metal specific people that are involved in submission grappling. Like Dave Mustaine is someone that I've seen you kind of roll
Mhm.
with over the years. And I believe he relatively recently got his black belt in BJJ. So, I mean, I feel like there would be a certain amount of people who'd be curious about what you're doing. Have any, I guess, people in the metal community who also train, like, have they reached out to you? Have they expressed like curiosity or maybe even intrigue to not even in a competitive sense, but like participate in some way, like maybe signal boost what you're doing at all?
Yeah, so most of us know each other, right? So for example, Harley Flanagan from Chromax is a black belt under Henzo, third degree black. We're very good friends actually. Billy Biohazard from Biohazard, he's also a black belt, also from Henzo, right? And Michael from Nickelback, bass guitarist, I think he's not brown belt. He was purple belt when I find out that he trains jiu-jitsu. But yeah, there are a lot of guys. Maynard from Tool is a black belt, right? So there are actually plenty of guys, and some of them, we were on tour together, and that's kind of how even they started. Like Matt from Trivium, right? He didn't do jiu-jitsu yet. We were on tour, and he would come into our basically or backstage dojo all the time and watching us, and eventually started jiu-jitsu. I even helped him to find an academy in Florida where he lives that would be suitable for him. Now he's a black belt. See what I mean? So I became kind of like an ambassador, sort of in the entertainment industry for jiu-jitsu. Man, I got so many people into this and to started them to train. On my very first tour in 2007, we were on tour with Dragon Force and a bunch of other bands on a festival tour. And my jiu-jitsu journey started there because I was a judo black belt. I started judo when I was 9 years old. And so I did it my whole life. And I was teaching takedowns and judo for jiu-jitsu guys. And in 2007 on this tour, um, Herman Lee from Dragon Force was a blue belt under Royler Gracie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we were rolling around backstage, and I was showing them takedowns and whatnot. And then there was a friend who came by, didn't know that I was training, and he's like, "Oh man, I'm a black belt under Royler. I can hook up a private training for you, either with Hoist or Royler." And the tour was going to California a couple of days later. He hooked up the private, which was pretty funny because Hoist kind of pranked me. Like we went to his, to neutral ground. It's Evaldo Lima's academy, bunch of black belts there. I knew most of them. And Hoist comes in, kicks in the door, throws his back. Man, I'm gonna really kick somebody's ass today. Like he was totally mad. And everyone was like, man, my elbow hurts, my knee brace, my everybody was evaporating. So he points at me, you get on the mat. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so, his combat stand. And I'm looking at all the guys like, panic, like, guys, I have to play a show tomorrow. I can't get my head ripped off here. And
Mm-hmm.
all the way until we bumped fist, Hoist kept up the face. When he bumped him, I'm just fucking with you, man. He was laughing. And so after our little training session, I ceremoniously, like as a joke, I gave him my jiu-jitsu black belt. And I mean, so judo black belt at the time. It's like, give me a white belt, I start jiu-jitsu. So this was in 2007, so 19 years ago. And that's when I started jiu-jitsu. So I was a judo black belt long, long, long before that.
Yeah,
Your,
because I was
your lifestyle.
yeah. Yeah, because I was reading that in some of the supplemental materials around you, like that story and stuff like that. And I was thinking it must be so cool that you're, I guess, now inspiring other people as you were inspired yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, it's like I say this all the time that I became successful in my career, my businesses, because I had this martial arts mindset. You know, because it absolutely rewires who you are, like especially when you're young. But I would say any age started because it will change who you are, right? Besides, I have a very strong opinion. I don't want to get into that too deep, but as a man, for you to be a man, you have to be able to defend yourself, your kids, your family, all that. So you need to be able to fight to some degree, right? So I think that this is evolutionary and necessary. So it's society is still not a utopistic, crimeless society. So you need to know how to fight, be a man. You're never gonna really explore who you can be if this part of your life is not developed it, at least to some degree, right? If somebody can easily intimidate you or physically intimidate you easily, that's to me it's a problematic when it comes to your total evolution, right? But I look at it that martial art mindset rewired my mind, and I succeeded in every other way because of that. Because it's just kind of the things where it's what happens to you when you have to do something difficult. One of the things is a procrastination, right?
Mhm.
When you're a kid and or when you're a competitor, this this fight, whatever is happening, going to happen now. You can't run away from it,
Mhm.
right? You can't brush it under the carpet. This is gonna happen now. So your procrastination is out. Then the other thing is that challenges, you start to rephrase them. It's just an obstacle. I mean, sorry. Did I completely lose? Should I wait for your if you have
I'm No, we're good. We're good. I was trying to figure out a bit of a lighting situation here, but I mean, I guess I'll just do it from the shadows here. I guess
all
the
right.
fact the microphone's lit up is helping me out here. I guess it's
So
yeah.
basically what I was saying, like as a martial artist, you start to look at obstacles as challenges. Like I have to fight this giant guy. And at first he's like, oh my God. But eventually you start to think like, I might be able to beat him. You know, this is a challenge now, right? So all these things get rewired in your mind, and that is parallel to anything in life. Basically, it's the same structure. It's the same exact structure when it comes to martial arts, music, business. It's to me, it's timing, rhythm, harmony. Martial arts, timing, rhythm, harmony. Music, timing, rhythm, harmony. Business, same thing, right? So I feel like martial arts is a way to cultivate these things in a controlled environment. We are not out there with a sword and shields and fighting real wars anymore. But you still gotta have that mentality, that skill somehow in there.
No, for sure. I always felt like there was like a musical kind of rhythmic underpinning to jujitsu, and I was seeing different anecdotes where like your band members call you Spock because you're like so composed in these hectic situations. So I would think that mentality and composure piece would really come from the jujitsu there.
Absolutely. I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. There's 100,000 people in front of the stage. I walk out there and no heartbeat elevation of any kind. No, it's and it's the same when I go and compete. That is a lifetime of exactly that, gaining that composure, gaining that, both confidence, but the ability to control yourself physically, your heartbeat, your adrenaline, and all that. So, and when it comes to, and again, if you take this into whatever career you have, whatever business it is you're doing, it's gonna be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have the same composure. Crisis happens, catastrophes happen. How do you deal with that? In jiu-jitsu, when I'm about to get armbar, that's kind of a catastrophe to a degree. You know what I mean? I have to deal with that. Or you get judo thrown. Well, this is crisis management in a physical way that I think it's the same skill set. It's exactly the same skill set, at least up here.
No, well said. And I'm sure I could ask you a ton more questions, Zoltan, but you're a busy man. I understand. I mean, you're in a massive band. You got great stuff going on with Professional Grappling Federation. So I do want to be mindful of your time and schedule and give you the floor if you happen to have a final parting thought you wanted to add as we're wrapping up here. I really do appreciate the time, man.
Okay, well, this season started March 4th. Every Wednesday, they're going to be an amazing jiu-jitsu matches. So that's the PGF season, and you can watch it on YouTube on the official channel. We wanted to make sure that this is free for the masses. That's also a requisite for jiu-jitsu to become what we think it should be, right? And you can see it on Kick and all the other, every single social media format. You're going to find it. We are there. We are streaming. And we have an extreme roster this year again. I mean, it's difficult to even predict that who can win this, because pretty much anyone on this roster can win this, because it's any team can win it and any individual can win the playoff, because everybody's good. Everybody's top level. So tune in and let's do this. Let's have some jiu-jitsu in your lives.
No, it's very exciting, and this was a cool interview to get to do. I mean, I'm a big metal fan, and I love martial arts, so it's a perfect bit of synchronicity there and everything. But thanks so much for the time today, Zoltan. Looking forward to seeing the rollout of this new season and everything like that. Seems like very exciting times for sure. And yeah, I mean, to reiterate, thank you so much for giving great insights today. Enjoy the rest of your day, and yeah, all the best, man. Thank you so much for the great insights, as I said.
Thank you. See your
Awesome.
your
Thanks,
your
Dylan.
lit your lit up microphone end up working working as your only light.
I'm the light side of the force, and he's the dark side of the force.
Yeah. Oh, you have one too. I'm like, man, am I the odd one out here? I mean, like,
I think you might
what
be,
the
yeah.
hell?
But yeah,
Right.
thanks. So,
Dylan, thank you for the time. And if you need any imagery, any information whatsoever, just let me know.
yeah, thanks so
And
much.
if you find
Yeah,
yourself in Las Vegas during the season, just let me know, and we'll invite you into the show.
Yeah.
yeah,
We have the couches, it's comfortable. Also, what I do with the Zoom interviews now, I have two cameras running, the one that you guys record with, and there's another one running next to it, right? So I can upload you the footage in a high def, high resolution, what we just did
Hmm.
when you cut your program together, because I know that the Zoom cuts out time to time. Sometimes it's terrible quality.
Sure.
So if you want the option, I can just put it in a Dropbox so you would have access to the same interview, at least my part in a high resolution.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for that. I
This
mean,
is
that's
not my first rodeo. I said, you know what I mean? It
yeah.
happens all the time.
That is
So I
really
started
thoughtful
to
of you,
do that.
Zoltan.
Yeah.
I've actually never heard of that before.
Yeah, because it happens all the time. We did a great interview,
Yeah.
right? But the connection was crappy,
Yeah.
you know, or some whatever, right? And then they don't have the good footage. So now I have, you know, you always have your footage in a high quality, but I can give you mine. The software can easily sync it,
Mhm.
and then you have it. So I can Dropbox it for you.
There we have it. That's incredible stuff. Thanks so much to
All
both
right.
of you for the time today. And yeah, looking forward to seeing the big rollout with the new season. And yeah, all the best. Very exciting times.
All right. Thanks, brother.
Thanks, Dylan.